Good day, you are welcome to this class once again. Today we want to talk about quadratic equation, ways of solving quadratic equations, and a word problem leading to quadratic equations. Now, what do you understand by quadratic equation? Anytime you are mentioning quadratic equation or expression, we are talking about an equation in which the unknown variable there has a power of 2. The highest power there is 2. So we are talking about the equation of this form: ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. Now you see the unknown variable here. The variable here is x. So the highest power we have here is 2. So when you're talking about quadratic, the highest power of your unknown variable there must be 2. It must not be more than 2 or less than 2 for it to be quadratic. And this is the form of our quadratic equation. Now, for this equation to stay true as quadratic, that means the value for our a, which is the coefficient of x squared, must not be equal to 0. Because immediately a is equal to 0, the equation becomes linear. We have something like bx plus c equals to 0. So it becomes a linear equation. So for this thing to stay true as a quadratic equation, the value of a must not be equal to 0. So what are the now ways to solve a quadratic equation if we have it in this form? The first way, we look at the method of solving now. The first way we solve is through factorization method. Now, when we're talking about factorization method, it's talking about having n of 2 factors to solve for the quadratic equation. Now, because the highest power here is 2, so the solution we have for our quadratic equation will be 2 solutions. And this thing is an equation because of this equality sign. If this equality sign is removed, it becomes a quadratic expression, and we can also factorize it. Now, let's look at an example which use this factorization. Now, I have something here of the form, the question, let me say 2x squared minus 13x plus 15 equals to 0. Now, if you look at this equation, it's of this form: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Remember, my a here is 3, my b is minus 13 and c. So how do we solve this? By factorizing it. Now, be careful. Now, the coefficient of x squared is not 1. If it is 1, we can say we are looking for factors to multiply to give us 15 and to add to give us minus 13. But now, since the coefficient of the x squared is not 1, it's 2, it's more than 1. So this is the way we go about it. We multiply the constant, just like we are bringing these two together, just by saying you're saying 2x squared times 15, and that gives us 30x squared. So what we are now looking for is a factor of 30. Now I'm looking for factors of 30x squared in such a way that if I multiply those two factors, it will give me 30x squared, and if I add them, it will give me minus 13. Now this is the guideline that we need to watch. We are looking for minus 13. And here, we don't necessarily need this x because we know when we multiply x and x together, it gives us x squared. So the main point here is to find the factors of this 30 that leads to 13. Factor of 30 that leads to 13. And if you check 30, you can get 30 by saying 3 times 10. It will give us 30. But we say 3 plus 10, it will give us 13. But what we are looking for here is minus 13. Minus 13. No matter how we put the negative, if I say this is minus and minus, if I say this is minus 3 and this is minus 3, minus 3 times minus 10 will still give me 30. And if I say minus 3 times minus 10, it will still give me 30. But if I say minus 3 plus minus 10, that will, let me say minus 3 plus minus 10, that will give me minus 13. Because plus times minus will still be minus. So that means I have 30 and I have minus 13, which is this. I have 30 and I have minus 13. So since I now know that the two factors is minus 3 and minus 10. I can now add my s that the factor is minus 3x and minus 10x. So if I multiply this, it will give me 30x squared. And if I add it together, it will give me minus 13. So I'll be just, in this, if you see that this quadratic equation is 3 terms, this is the first term, second term, the third term. So I want to change this 13 minus 13x with these two to make it 4 terms so that I can group them in twos. So what am I trying to say? So that means we have something like this, 2x squared. Instead of writing minus 13, I will just pick minus 3x minus 10x, and I write minus plus 15 equals to 0. So I can now group them in twos now. And look for what is common there. So 2x squared minus 3x, you can see what is common in these two is just x. And if you factor that, that would be this will be 2x minus 3. And if you look at minus 10x and plus 15, what is common to that? 5 is common to 10. And this, but if you check this is minus 2x. This 2x rather than minus 3. So the first term here is positive, and here we have a negative. So you can say minus 5 can go just to have the same thing as this positive here in our factorization, and this will give me 2x minus 3, which is equal to, you see, it's a must, we must get the same thing inside this bracket. So that means we just combine it. Since we have the same, we can pick one, say 2x minus 3, and we combine this and this together, x minus 5 equals to 0. So you can now set each to 0, that's 2x minus 3 equals to 0, or x minus 5 equals to 0. So that means 2x equals to 3, or x equals to 5. I mean, my x equals to 3 over 2 or 5 in this situation. But that's a way to use a factorization method. But don't forget, if the coefficient of your x squared here is just 1, if when you say 1 of this multiplied by 15, you still have 15. And we can see with the same approach for it. Now, the second method I would like to introduce is what we call the completing the square. Completing the square method. I normally specify to use this method sometimes in solving equation. Now, let's take, we have, for example, something like this. We have 2x squared. Once we use this completing the square, minus 2x minus 12 equals to 0. Now, using the completing the square method, we give us the, when we solve it through completing the square, either through factorization, we still result at the same answer, at the same time. But there are some quadratic equations that we cannot factorize it by having the two factors, by having two factors. Like that one we did earlier, that have two factors. There are some that we can't get their factors. So if we can't get the factors, the easiest way is to use completing the square, or we use the formula method. That means that will lead us to having a decimal as our answers. But here, let's check now. For this now, anytime you are solving quadratic equation, you see the coefficient of our x squared using completing the square. The coefficient of our x squared is not 1, it's 2. So once we make it 1, then we divide 2 by 2 to make it 1. That's the first step, and that means we have x squared minus x minus 6 equals to 0. So I've made this. The next step is to take this constant value outside. So that means I have x squared minus x equals to, when I take it, that will be 0 because it's negative here, it becomes 6 outside it. Now, here now, the next thing to do is, don't forget, let me write for, we divide 2 by 2 coefficients, and now you take the constant term out. Now, when you now get here, now what we need here, don't forget we have completing the square. What we need here is to find the coefficient of x. Now, this is the rule there. Let me write it in statement before explaining it. It says square half the coefficient of x and add it to both sides of the equation. Now, what are we saying? If you check here, the coefficient of x is minus 1. Coefficient of x is negative 1. And the thing says we should half it. Negative 1 times it is minus 1 over 2. That's a half. But the question now says square half of the coefficient. That means I'm squaring it like this. I'm squaring it. And then I will add it to both sides. So what they are now saying is just to come in x squared minus x plus minus 1 over 2 all squared will be equals to 6 plus minus 1 over 2 all squared. Don't forget, I didn't square the value. I didn't get the square. You know, this, if I square minus 1 over 2 to be 1 over 4, I didn't do it because of something. And that's what we are going to do here. We can easily factorize this. And because we are using the completing the square method, if you come to what we call a perfect square, what do I mean by perfect square? That means when you have a quadratic equation of this form, if I say x minus 3 all squared, it shows that it occurs twice. The same thing as s minus 3, s minus 3. So this is what we call a perfect square when we are doing quadratic. So this thing, because we are using a completed square, will result to a perfect square. So instead of us stretching ourselves to factorize this again, looking for factors, since we know it will lead us to what we call a perfect square, we just pick the variable x here and pick this and we square it. What I'm saying, we just say x, this is minus 1 over 2 all squared will be equals to, we can now do the 6 plus, find the value, this one will be 1 over 4. That's the meaning. So anytime you are using completing the square, the factor you are adding, just pick x and the factor you are adding. That's why if this is positive, this will also be positive. But since it's negative, I put x minus this all squared equals to. Now, if you now factor, calculate this now, you have x minus 1 over 2 all squared will be equals to, if you find the LCM, that will be 4. That will be 24 plus 1, that will be 25 over 24. So that means I have x minus 1. So that means I have x minus 1 over 2 all squared equals to 25 over 24. Sorry, 25 over 4. That will be 25. That will be 25 over 4. Now, the easiest way now to cancel this square is just like I will square root both sides. That means I have x minus 1 over 2. Because when you are using square root, don't forget our plus and minus. 25 over 4. That means x minus 1 over 2 because of plus or minus. Square root of 25 is 5 and 4 is 2. So that is my value for s. If I transfer this half to the other side, that will become positive, plus or minus 5 over 2. Now to split it to get the different values for x, that means saying x because of 1 over 2 became the positive plus 5 over 2, or you say half minus 5 over 2. You say x equals to, since they have the same denominator, we just add it, this becomes 6 over 2, or the same thing, this becomes minus 4 over 2, and my x becomes 3 or minus 2. So using calculating the square, we arrive at 3 or minus 2. One of the wonderful thing about quadratic equation is if you substitute this value into the quadratic equation, you must get 0. So this is what we call the solution of the quadratic equation. So the third method is just applying the formula using the quadratic formula, using the formula. Now, the formula is s equals to minus b plus or minus root b squared minus 4ac, everything divided by 2a. I hope we can apply using the formula to solve. Now, the same question, I want to use the formula to solve the same question and find, at least see that we really arrive at the same, we really arrive at the same. The question is 2x squared minus 2x minus 12. Now, the question is 2x squared minus 2x minus 12 equals to 0. I want to apply this formula method to check if I will arrive at the same answer. Now, the coefficient of my x squared is a, and that will be 2. The coefficient of my x here, that will be b, and that's minus 2. And the constant term c, that will be minus 12. So let's apply the, that means I'm saying x equals to minus b, and b is minus here already, just like having minus into bracket minus 2 plus or minus root. B squared, I say minus 2 all squared minus 4 times 8 times 2 times minus 12. Everything divided by 2 times a is also 2. So you say x equals to, this one becomes positive, plus or minus root. 2 minus 2 squared is 4. Now you see, this one is multiplication. Minus and minus turn this one to positive. 4 times 2, that would be 8. And 8 times 12. 8 times 12, then that would be 96. 8 times 12, that would be 96. That would be 96 divided by 4. So if we solve this and just continue, that would be 2 plus or minus root 100 over 4. That means my x will now be 2 plus or minus root 100 is 10 over 4. So if we split that thing there, so I have 2 minus 10 over 4, or 2 plus 10 over 4. So that means x equals 2 minus 10, that's minus 8 over 4, that will be minus 2. And 2 plus 10, that's 12, and that will be 2. You see that the answer is still the same. The answer is still the same. Using the formula, using the completing the square, and using factorization. So don't forget, there are some quadratic equations that you cannot find their factors. So if you can't find the factors, use the quadratic formula or use the method of completing the square to get the solution of it.